Once upon a time, in a small, quiet town, there lived a young girl named Lily. She was a bright and imaginative 7-year-old who loved to explore and create fantastical stories in her mind. But there was one thing that frightened her more than anything else: the dark space under her bed. Every night, as her mother tucked her in, Lily would stare wide-eyed at the shadowy abyss beneath her bed. Her mother would reassure her, "There's nothing there, sweetheart. Just dust bunnies and forgotten toys." But each night, as the lights went out and the moonlight cast eerie shapes around her room, Lily felt those shadows whispering secrets, curling around her legs like an icy hand. One stormy night, with thunder rumbling and rain lashing against the windows, Lily lay in bed feeling particularly uneasy. The wind howled outside, sounding like a mournful creature, and each clap of thunder made her heart race. She pulled the blanket tight around her shoulders and tried to forget about the darkness. But then she heard it, a soft scratching sound coming from under her bed. At first, she thought it might be her imagination, fueled by the frightening atmosphere, yet the sound persisted. It was a slow, deliberate scratch, like a claw dragging across the wooden floor. "Lily, it's just the wind," she told herself, but deep down she knew it wasn't. It felt different, more alive. Summoning all her courage, she leaned over the side of her bed to take a peek, the fabric of her pajamas brushing against the cold floor. The moonlight barely penetrated the shadows under the bed, but for a moment she thought she saw two glowing eyes staring back at her. They flickered and vanished, replaced by a low grunt. Terrified, Lily quickly sat up, her heart pounding in her chest. What could it be? As she lay shaking in her bed, she remembered the tales her grandmother used to tell her about a monster that lived in the dark, a creature that thrived on fear and thrived in shadows. She had always dismissed those stories as fairy tales meant to scare children into behaving, but now the thought made her stomach churn. "Maybe if I ignore it, it will go away," she whispered to herself as she buried her face in her pillow, trembling. But the scratching continued, growing louder and more frantic. It was as if the creature beneath her bed was trying to get out, trying to claw its way into her world. "No, go away," Lily shouted, her voice small and shaky. But her words were swallowed by the storm outside. The scratching stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that settled heavily in the air, and for a moment she thought she might be safe. Just as she began to relax, she heard it again, but this time it was different. The creature spoke, its voice a low, gravelly whisper. "Lily, come closer. I won't hurt you." She felt a chill run down her spine. "Who are you?" she managed to squeak out, her voice trembling. "I am the shadow of your fears, the darkness that hides within. I have been waiting so long for you," it replied, its tone both alluring and frightening, wrapping around her like fog. Lily's heart raced as she processed its words. "Waiting for me? Why?" "To become friends, of course," the creature said, its eyes reappearing in the swirling shadows. They flickered with a strange, haunting light. "I can show you wonders beyond your wildest dreams. All you have to do is come here, just a little closer." The invitation was tempting. She felt a pull towards the darkness, a desire to know what lay beneath her bed. But she remembered her grandmother's words, warning her that the shadows could lie, that they could twist her dreams into nightmares. "No, I don't want to be your friend," Lily shouted defiantly, surprising even herself. "You're just a monster." "Monster?" it echoed, a deep rumble of laughter filling the room. "I'm more than a monster, dear Lily. I'm what makes the night beautiful. I can show you all the starry skies the world has to offer. All you need to do is trust me." For a moment, the storm outside quieted, and the atmosphere became thick with tension. Lily felt her resolve waver. What if the creature wasn't all bad? What if it could show her something wonderful? But just as she was about to lean closer, she remembered something important. "You only come out when I'm scared," she yelled, her voice steadying. "The shadows can't hurt me unless I let them." Silence enveloped the room again, the creature's laughter fading into an unsettling hush. "You think you can resist me? I am fear, Lily, and you will never escape me," it said, its voice low and threatening. With newfound determination, Lily made a decision. "I'm not afraid of you. I don't need you," she shouted, drowning out any inkling of doubt. "You're just a shadow." For a moment there was a heavy stillness, and then the creature's glowing eyes flickered and began to shrink back into the darkness. "You'll regret this, Lily. I will always be here, lurking in the shadows, waiting for you to fear again." The shadows under her bed twisted and convulsed before finally dissolving into the darkness, leaving only the sound of the rain pounding against the windows. Though she was still shaking, Lily felt a sense of calm wash over her. She took a deep breath and lay back down, covering her head with her blanket. From that day forward, Lily learned to embrace the darkness instead of fearing it. She discovered that the shadows could not harm her as long as she stood tall against her fears. At night, she would sometimes imagine the monster lurking below, but instead of feeling terrified, she would smile and whisper, "You don't scare me anymore." And as the thunderstorm passed and the sun rose, brightening her little room, Lily learned that sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we create in our minds, and by confronting them, we can become stronger and more courageous. The monster under the bed would remain, waiting in the shadows. But for Lily, the darkness had lost its power, transforming from a place of fear into a realm of possibilities. She was no longer just a girl. She had become a warrior against the shadows, ready to face whatever came next. As she drifted off to sleep that night, she smiled, knowing she was the one who held the power. And deep down, she knew that that monster would never truly understand what it meant to be brave. Once upon a time, in a small, forgotten town, nestled between a dense forest and an abandoned railway, there stood a peculiar toy store named Whimsy Wonders. The building itself was old, with peeling paint and dusty windows that seemed to whisper secrets about the past. Yet the store had a charm that attracted children and their parents, despite the whispers of suspicion that circulated among the townsfolk. The owner of Whimsy Wonders, an elderly man known as Mr. Grimsby, had a peculiar reputation. He rarely spoke to customers and had an unsettling glint in his eye. Some said he was a wizard, while others believed he was cursed. Regardless of the rumors, the hauntingly beautiful toys within the store beckoned children in droves. Wooden dolls with glassy eyes, stuffed animals that seemed almost lifelike, and intricate model trains filled the shelves, each with a story waiting to unfold. One gloomy afternoon, as dark clouds loomed overhead, a curious girl named Lily decided to explore the toy store. Lily was 10 years old, adventurous and brave, the type of girl who loved a good mystery. The other kids often warned her about Whimsy Wonders, telling stories of toys coming to life at night and strange noises echoing from within. But Lily was undeterred. She approached the creaky door, pushed it open, and stepped inside. The air inside was thick with the scent of aged wood and dust. Dim light filtered through the dirty windows, illuminating rows of stunning toys. As Lily wandered deeper into the store, her fingers brushed against the smooth surfaces of the toys, each one more enchanting than the last. Suddenly, she heard a soft giggle echoing through the aisles. "Is anyone there?" Lily called, her voice shaky yet curious. No response came, but the giggle returned, now accompanied by a faint whisper that seemed to beckon her. "Come play with us." Intrigued and a little frightened, she followed the sound until she found herself in the back of the store. There, under a flickering light, stood a life-sized doll dressed in a tattered frock, its face eerily expressive. Its glassy eyes seemed to follow Lily as she moved closer. "Hello, Lily," the doll said, its voice sweet yet unsettling. "I've been waiting for you. You know my name?" Lily stammered, trying to comprehend the impossible. Of course, the doll replied, its mouth perfectly mimicking human speech. All the toys here know you. We want to play a game. Lily felt a shiver run down her spine, but her curiosity got the better of her. What kind of game? A treasure hunt, the doll replied. If you win, you'll receive a special prize. Lily hesitated, glancing around the dimly lit room filled with staring eyes, both from the toys and the shadows that lurked in the corners. But she was brave, and something inside her couldn't resist the allure of the treasure hunt. Okay, I'm in. The doll clapped its hands, and the store erupted in unsettling laughter. Suddenly, the lights dimmed further, casting ominous shadows across the room. Your first clue, the doll spoke, is hidden where the toys dream the deepest. With her heart pounding, Lily set off deeper into the store, searching for the hidden clue. She made her way past rows of furry creatures, flying dragons, and train sets, finally arriving at a dusty corner filled with forgotten toys. Among them was a plush bear, its fur matted and eyes dulled with age. As Lily knelt to examine the bear, she realized it had an old key tied around its neck. Excited, she pulled the key free and searched for a lock. You found the first clue, the doll's voice echoed in her mind. Now find the door that hides behind the curtain of silence, it continued cryptically. Lily looked around nervously. Finally, she spotted a heavy velvet curtain hanging in a dim corner of the store. Taking a deep breath, she parted the curtain, revealing a small, locked door. Her heart raced as she inserted the key and turned it. The lock clicked open and she pushed the door ajar. Inside, the room was dark and cold, filled with dust and cobwebs. A mirror stood against the wall, covered in a thick layer of grime. Lily stepped closer, wiping the mirror with her sleeve. As she cleared the glass, her reflection stared back. Only it was different. Frightened eyes looked back at her, and she could see shadows moving behind her in the room. Don't look away, Lily, the doll's voice whispered again, now much closer. You must be brave. Suddenly, the reflection in the mirror changed. It showed a twisted, nightmarish version of the toy store, filled with screaming toys and dark figures that danced around them. Lily gasped and stumbled back, nearly knocking over a stack of toys. The more you hesitate, the more your fear grows, the doll taunted. Are you ready for the next clue? Yes, Lily replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Find what is lost but longed for the most. The answer lies within the heart of the toy that resembles you. With that, Lily felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over her. She thought for a moment and then rushed back to the front of the store, to the doll that had called her name. The doll's face seemed to flicker between expressions, joy, anger, sadness, as if it were alive. Do you mean me? She asked, her voice trembling. The doll smirked. Exactly. It's time to find your heart. The room began to spin, the walls twisting, and the laughter of the toys grew louder. Lily felt herself being pulled towards the doll, as if an unseen force was binding her to it. She struggled, but her feet moved forward against her will. Join us, Lily, the doll sang, its voice echoing like a haunting melody. Become one of us. In a moment of desperate clarity, Lily grabbed the doll tightly and closed her eyes, summoning all her courage. No, I won't let fear take me, the doll screamed, its voice turning from sweet to menacing. Lily felt the room shake and light flared around her. Stay true to yourself, a voice inside her echoed. With a burst of determination, she focused on her love for toys, her memories of happy days, and the friendships she cherished. Suddenly, there was silence. When she opened her eyes, the room was bright and the toys stood still, lifeless once more. The doll's face was a mask of rage, but gradually it transformed back into the innocent, enchanting smile it had worn when Lily first entered. Welcome back, it said softly, almost sadly. You have chosen wisely. The game ends here. Lily stumbled back, breathing heavily. What? What was that? Just a test, the doll replied, its eyes shimmering. You proved your bravery. You can leave now, but remember, fear is a powerful thing. Do not let it control you. With a wave of the doll's hand, the door to the store opened wide. Lily stepped outside, the fresh air filling her lungs. She looked back to see the doll waving goodbye, its ethereal smile lingering in her mind. As she walked away from Whimsy Wonders, the shadows around the store began to close in. The whispers returned, but this time they felt distant and faint, lost in the rustling of the wind. From that day on, the toy store remained a curious mystery in her heart. She continued to visit, but never alone, for she had learned that toys might hold secrets and that courage could break the spell of fear. And deep in the corners of Whimsy Wonders, the laughter of toys echoed, waiting for the next brave soul to come forth and play their haunting game. In the stillness of the Chernobyl exclusion zone, time seems frozen, yet the echoes of its past reverberate through the crumbling structures and overgrown landscapes. It was a place where humanity met its hubris and nature began its slow reclamation. Yet, not all is as it seems in this desolate region where life was once abundant and happiness flourished. It had been years since the disaster, yet the sight of Chernobyl continued to draw thrill seekers and urban explorers from around the globe. A group of 5 friends, fueled by the allure of danger and the promise of adventure, decided to venture into the exclusion zone. Among them was Michael, a budding filmmaker eager to document their journey. "Imagine the views," he exclaimed, holding his camera aloft. "We're going to make something epic." Their group consisted of Sarah, the cautious one, Jake, the thrill seeker, Lily, the haunted artist, and Tom, the history enthusiast. On a crisp autumn morning, they set off on their expedition, driving deep into the heart of the abandoned city of Pripyat. As they entered Pripyat, the air felt thick with an unshakable sense of foreboding. The iconic Ferris wheel stood still, covered in years of rust and neglect, a haunting reminder of what once was. Michael began filming, but the eeriness cast a long shadow over their excitement. "Let's check out the school," Jake suggested. "I heard there are still textbooks and toys left behind." Reluctantly, the others agreed, and they made their way to the nearby school, stepping carefully over the cracked pavement littered with debris. Inside, the walls were lined with peeling paint, and dusty classrooms whispered secrets of the children who once filled them. As they explored, Lily lingered at a mural depicting happy children playing in the sun, blissfully unaware of their grim fate. She felt an unsettling presence, as if the eyes of the painted children were watching her. As the day faded into an eerie twilight, the group set up camp in an abandoned apartment building. The wind howled outside, causing the broken windows to rattle ominously. With little to do but share stories, they gathered around a small fire, the flickering flames casting long shadows. "Did you know that some believe the zone is haunted?" Tom remarked, his voice low. "People have reported strange lights and phantom sounds." "Shut up, Tom. You're just trying to spook us," Jake replied, tossing a twig into the fire. But the tension hung heavy in the air. As night deepened, the group retired to their makeshift sleeping areas, the unsettling atmosphere gnawing at their minds. The following day, tensions reached a breaking point. Sarah, usually the rational one, had become increasingly anxious. "I don't like it here. We should leave," she insisted. But before they could discuss it further, they noticed that Lily was missing, her belongings still in the apartment. Panic set in as they called her name, searching through the darkened halls. "She was right here," Michael shouted, worry etching lines on his face. Hours passed, and just when despair was creeping in, they heard a faint whispering sound. They followed it to an old playground where Lily stood, staring blankly at the ground. She seemed oblivious to their presence. "Lily, what's wrong?" Sarah called out, rushing to her side. Lily snapped back to reality, her eyes wide and terrified. I heard them. The children. They were singing. Haunted by Lily's experience, the group decided to leave the playground. However, on their way back to the apartment, they found that the landscape had changed. The paths twisted and turned, disorienting them. Where are we? This doesn't make sense, Jake exclaimed, panic rising. Suddenly, a fog descended, enveloping them. Shadows danced within the mist, and whispers filled the air. We need to stay together, Michael shouted, but it was too late. Everyone was separating in the chaos. In the fog, Michael stumbled upon a decrepit building marked as a hospital. Curiosity driving him forward, he entered, his heart pounding. Inside, he found remnants of medical equipment, rusted and covered in dust. But then, he heard it. A soft, melancholic lullaby echoing through the halls, sending chills down his spine. He followed the sound until he reached a room filled with a faded mural of children playing. In the center stood a ghostly figure, a girl no older than 10, her eyes filled with sorrow. Help us, she whispered, her voice a blend of desperation and longing. Meanwhile, Sarah had found Jake, who was trying to comprehend the bizarre phenomena around them. We have to find Michael and Lily, she urged. Gathering their courage, they ventured into the fog together. In the depths of the building, they finally found Michael. His expression reflected a mix of horror and fascination. You have to see this, he murmured, pointing to the girl. But before Sarah and Jake could react, the girl turned, showing them the truth. The remnants of countless children lost to fate, their souls trapped in the zone. As the room filled with whispers, their understanding deepened. The children had seen the horror of their world crumbling and had never moved on. They became the guardians of this forsaken place, forever mourning their lost lives. Frantic and desperate, the group needed to leave. They rushed towards the exit, the echoes of children's laughter haunting their steps. The mist thickened and the shadows elongated, blocking their path. In a moment of clarity, Lily appeared, her face pale but resolute. We need to go. They want us to stay. She grabbed Michael's hand, her grip firm. Together they navigated back through the fog, and miraculously the path opened wider, leading them back to their camp. The sun was breaking through the clouds as they emerged, and they took a moment to catch their breath. As they drove away, the unease lingered, an unshakable chill that stowed itself in their hearts. They left behind the echo of lost souls, a piece of themselves tethered to the haunted past of Chernobyl. Years later, Michael would return once more, determined to document his experience. But as he stood once again at the ruins, he couldn't shake the feeling that some echoes never truly fade away. And the rusted Ferris wheel, looming silent in the distance, still carried the weight of untold stories, waiting for the next group brave or foolish enough to listen. Once upon a time, in the vast expanse of the Atlantic Ocean, there lay a ship known as the SS Blackwater. It was a magnificent vessel, built in the early 1900s, laden with treasures and memories of adventures across the stormy seas. But the SS Blackwater was cursed, or so the old sailors whispered. One fateful night, the ship set sail from a bustling port, her holds filled with spices, textiles, and an unusual cargo, an ancient relic believed to bring misfortune. The captain, a seasoned mariner named Captain Harris, dismissed the superstitions. Little did he know that the relic held dark secrets, ones that would soon lead to disaster. As they sailed deeper into the ocean, a storm brewed on the horizon. The winds howled like banshees as dark clouds swallowed the moonlight. The crew, typically robust and cheerful, fell silent as an eerie chill enveloped the ship. Rain lashed at the deck and thunder cracked above, yet Captain Harris remained resolute, steering through the tempest. Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the sky, revealing a phantasmal figure standing at the helm. It was a woman, clad in tattered white garments, her hair wild and swirling like the tempest itself. "Leave these waters!" she screamed, her voice barely audible over the roar of the storm. The crew, paralyzed with fear, dared not look away. Ignoring the apparition, Captain Harris pressed on, determined to brave the storm. But the ship was no match for nature's fury. A colossal wave crashed against the hull, splintering wood and sending men tumbling. Chaos ensued. The crew scrambled to regain control, but the ship was overwhelmed. The SS Blackwater groaned, her timbers creaking as she surrendered to the sea. In the blink of an eye, the ship was engulfed, disappearing beneath the roiling waves. The last thing Captain Harris saw was the ghostly woman, now laughing maniacally as the water swallowed him whole. Years passed, and the tale of the SS Blackwater morphed into legend. The ship and its ghostly captain became a cautionary story told around flickering campfires, sparking both fear and curiosity. Many believed the wreck was still intact, resting on the ocean floor, surrounded by a shroud of darkness and despair. It was said that those who ventured too close would hear the mournful cries of the crew and see the flickering lights of the doomed vessel. Driven by intrigue, a group of treasure hunters decided to seek the fabled wreckage. Among them was Sarah, a marine archaeologist fascinated by shipwrecks and the stories they held. She had heard the tales of the SS Blackwater and was determined to uncover its secrets. Along with her team, she boarded a sturdy research vessel equipped with deep-sea exploration gear. As they sailed toward the last known coordinates of the SS Blackwater, dark clouds gathered overhead, mirroring the ominous tales they had heard. Sarah felt an unease settle in her stomach, but her ambition pushed her forward. They dropped their sonar equipment, mapping the ocean floor, and soon a clear image of the wreck appeared on their screens. It was a haunting sight. The ship lay upright, surprisingly well preserved, its ghostly white sails still billowing in the currents of the ocean. Cracked windows stared back at them like hollow eyes. Whispering a prayer, Sarah and her team donned their diving gear and descended into the abyss. As they approached the wreck, the water grew colder, an unnatural chill wrapping around them like fingers. The light from their torches flickered, casting dancing shadows that played tricks on their minds. They entered the ship through a shattered porthole, the interior cloaked in darkness and silence. Strange, sweet smells mingled with salt water, as if the relic of the past still lingered. As Sarah led the team deeper into the ship, they stumbled upon the captain's quarters. There, on a dusty table, lay the relic, a beautifully carved chest adorned with mysterious symbols. The moment Sarah touched it, a surge of energy coursed through her, and the air thickened with emotion. Visions flooded her mind, images of the storm, the ghostly woman, and the crew's desperate faces as they fought for salvation. Panicked, she dropped the chest, but it was too late. The temperature plummeted, and the ghostly woman reappeared, her face twisting in rage. She reached out to Sarah, and a deep, bone-chilling voice echoed in the water. "You have disturbed our rest." The team turned to swim for their lives, but the ship itself seemed to awaken, its walls closing in, trapping them inside. The ghostly crew materialized, their faces twisted in sorrow and anger. Desperate to escape, Sarah and her team swam frantically, but the currents tugged them back, dragging them deeper into the ship's bowels. Just as they felt hope slipping away, Sarah remembered an old sailor's chant her grandfather had taught her. With every ounce of strength, she began to chant it aloud, the words flowing from her as if guided by unseen forces. The ghostly presence faltered, the ship trembled, and the water began to swirl violently around them. With one last push, Sarah and her team burst through the porthole, breaking the surface and gasping for air. They clung to the side of the research vessel as they were pulled aboard, shaken but alive. The storm had cleared, leaving a calm sea in its wake. As Sarah looked back at the ocean, she felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. The legend of the SS Blackwater lived on, its ghostly crew still bound to their watery grave. From that day forward, she vowed to keep their story alive, not just as a tale of tragedy, but as a reminder of the deep's mysteries, a place where echoes of the past linger, waiting for those brave enough to listen. And on quiet nights, if you sailed near the coordinates of the SS Blackwater, you might just hear their whispers carried by the wind, warning you of the darkness that lies beneath the waves. On the outskirts of a small forgotten town, the remnants of a once lively circus stood in eerie silence. The faded tents, tattered and flapping in the chilling wind, were all that remained of the Great Solano's Traveling Circus. It had been nearly a decade since the circus mysteriously vanished overnight, leaving behind only whispers and rumors that danced like shadows through the town's narrow streets. Samantha, an adventurous young woman with a thirst for the unknown, had heard the chilling tales of the circus from the townspeople. They spoke of laughter that turned to screams and performers who had seemingly vanished into thin air. Intrigued, she decided to explore the abandoned grounds one fateful autumn evening, driven by a mix of bravery and curiosity. As she approached the dilapidated entrance, the air turned cold, and a sense of foreboding wrapped around her like a heavy cloak. The large archway, once vibrant and splashed with colors, now lay cracked and worn. "Welcome to the greatest show on Earth," it read, the words barely legible. Samantha hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest, but the thrill of adventure pushed her inside. The gravel crunched under her feet as she walked through the empty fairgrounds. Broken rides stood still, swallowed by weeds and underbrush that had taken over. She made her way to the main tent, its striped fabric tattered and stained, fluttering ominously in the evening breeze. Peeking inside, her heart skipped a beat. The vast interior was littered with remnants of the past, a cracked mirror ball, old props, and dusty animal cages, long empty. As she ventured deeper into the tent, a sudden chill swept through the air, and Samantha shivered. "Just the wind," she whispered to herself. But as she turned to leave, she heard it, a faint melody, a haunting, whimsical tune that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. Instinctively drawn to it, she followed the sound, her heart racing with a mix of fear and excitement. The melody led her to a smaller tent, tucked away in the shadows. The entrance was partially covered by overgrown vines, but she pushed through them, determined to uncover the source of the sound. Inside, the atmosphere shifted. The air was thick with despair and nostalgia, and the melody swelled to a crescendo. In the center of the tent was an old, dusty music box perched on a rickety table. Samantha approached, mesmerized. She reached out and gently opened the box, and the music filled the tent, echoing ominously off the walls. As the notes danced around her, a chill ran down her spine. Shadows flickered at the edges of her vision, twisting and writhing as if alive. Before she could comprehend what was happening, faint outlines began to materialize in the dim light. Figures dressed in tattered circus costumes emerged, their faces pale and eyes hollow. They were the lost souls of the circus, forever trapped in a world that had forgotten them. Samantha's breath quickened as she realized these were the performers from the tales, the clowns, acrobats, and animal tamers, all bearing expressions of sadness and despair. One figure stepped forward, a tall woman with wild hair and a cracked smile, her voice echoing in a hollow whisper. "Help us. We were cursed by a darkness that lingers here. Our laughter turned to screams as we were bound to this place, and now we can only exist in shadows." Samantha's mind raced. "What do you mean? How can I help?" Fear gnawed at her, but she couldn't turn away from their pleas. "The music box is the key," the woman continued, her voice twisted with anguish. "You must find the source of the curse and destroy it. Only then can we be free." With newfound determination, Samantha nodded. The music box's melody echoed in her mind as she sought answers. She ventured deeper into the circus's depths, her heart pounding with every step. The shadows followed closely behind, whispering secrets and sorrowful tales of despair. Following the music led her to the old carousel, now but a forgotten relic of joy. As she approached, the melody intensified, matching the rhythm of her pounding heart. The horses, once vibrant and alive, stood still, their glassy eyes watching her intently. Samantha could almost hear the laughter of children, intermingled with haunting wails. She noticed a strange figure emerging from the shadows beside the carousel, a dark silhouette twisted and menacing. It was the source of the curse, a being shrouded in shadows, its eyes glowing with malice. "You should not have come here, little girl," it hissed, its voice a rasp of decay. "This is my domain, and you are not welcome." Samantha felt paralyzed with fear, but she thought of the lost souls and their desperation. Summoning all her courage, she took a step closer. "I will free you," she yelled defiantly. "You cannot keep them trapped here." In an instant, the figure lunged at her, but Samantha was ready. She clutched the music box tightly, the melody becoming a shield around her. In a moment of clarity, she remembered the legends. Fear was the darkness's fuel, but love and bravery could conquer it. With a fierce shout, she opened the music box wide and faced the darkness. The melody erupted into a powerful symphony, lifting the spirits of the trapped performers. Their sorrow transformed into strength, and they joined forces with Samantha, creating a luminous barrier of light. The dark figure screeched, its form flickering as the light intensified. "No, you cannot escape," it shrieked, clawing at the barrier. But Samantha pressed on, pouring her heart into the melody, channeling all her courage and determination. The shadows recoiled, and with one final burst, the light shattered the darkness, sending a blinding wave throughout the carnival grounds. Silence fell upon the circus. When the light dimmed, Samantha found herself alone in the tent, the music box closed and still. The air felt lighter, and a sense of peace washed over her. The performers, free at last, had vanished, leaving behind only whispers of their presence and gratitude. Samantha exited the tent, her heart filled with both sorrow and joy. The circus stood still, but its once dreadful energy had shifted. The shadows were no longer lurking, and as she made her way out, she felt a sense of closure, an end to the suffering that had permeated the air for so long. As she reached the entrance, she turned back for one last look. The tents fluttered softly in the breeze, and in the distance she could almost hear the echoes of laughter, a promise of new beginnings woven into the fabric of legends. With a smile and a heart full of memories, Samantha left the abandoned circus, knowing that in its quiet corners, the spirit of the great Solano's traveling circus would finally find peace. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting an eerie glow over the small town of Blackwood. At the edge of town, shrouded in overgrown trees and thick underbrush, stood the crumbling remains of Blackwood School. Abandoned for nearly 2 decades, it was a place that many feared but few dared to approach. Whispers filled the air about the tragic events that led to its closure. Nonetheless, for a group of adventurous teenagers seeking thrills, it became the perfect setting for a night they would never forget. As the clock struck 8, Mia, Jake, Sarah, and Connor gathered at the edge of the school's property, their flashlights flickering nervously in the twilight. The air was thick with tension, a mix of excitement and unease. They had heard the stories, how the school had been closed after a mysterious fire, how a teacher had vanished without a trace, and how, on certain nights, one could hear the faint sounds of children's laughter echoing through the halls. "Are you sure about this?" Sarah asked, clutching her phone tightly, her face pale in the dim light. "Come on, it'll be fun," Jake replied, trying to mask his own apprehension with bravado. We'll just explore a little and leave before it gets too late." Mia and Connor exchanged glances, but followed the group as Jake pushed the creaky gate open. The rusted hinges screamed in protest, echoing through the stillness like a warning. As they stepped onto the grounds, a chill swept through the air, unsettling Mia. She felt a strange sensation, as if the very earth beneath her feet was alive with energy. The building loomed ahead, its windows dark and hollow, like the eyes of a long-dead animal. Inside, the air was stale, thick with dust and the scent of mildew. Their flashlights swept across the corridor, illuminating peeling paint and shattered glass. Lockers stood ajar, and old posters clung to the walls, faded by time. "Let's check out the gym first," Connor suggested, leading the way. They wandered through the halls, their laughter echoing off the walls, momentarily drowning out the feeling of dread that seeped into their bones. As they entered the gym, the vastness of the room enveloped them. A tattered basketball net hung limply at one end, and the wooden floor was marred with age. Suddenly, Mia noticed something strange near the far wall, a series of strange markings etched into the wooden planks. She moved closer, her flashlight illuminating symbols that looked almost like hieroglyphics mixed with childlike drawings. "Who would draw this here?" she murmured, tracing her fingers over the carvings. Just then, a faint sound filled the air, a soft melodic humming that seemed to drift in from nowhere. "What's that?" Jake asked, his eyes widening as he scanned the room. The humming grew louder, almost pleading. "It's probably just the wind," Connor shrugged, but the tremor in his voice betrayed his discomfort. They ventured closer to where the humming seemed strongest, and suddenly, without warning, the gym doors slammed shut, sealing them inside. Panic surged through the group, and they rushed to the door, but it wouldn't budge. "Mia, do something!" Sarah screamed, but Mia was frozen in place, her eyes wide with terror as the humming intensified, morphing into laughter, soft, childish, and echoing all around them. "Guys, let's calm down," Connor suggested, though he himself looked frightened. "It's probably just a prank." Before he could finish, the lights flickered and then went out entirely, plunging them into darkness. In the pitch black, the laughter grew louder, now mixed with frantic whispers. "Mia, help us. Find us. They're just voices, just echoes," Jake said, his bravado wearing thin. But deep down, dread clawed at his chest. Suddenly, the lights flashed back on, revealing a figure standing at the edge of the gym, pale, gaunt, with hollow eyes staring directly into Mia's soul. It was a woman, dressed in an old-fashioned long dress, her lips moving as if she were speaking, though no sound emerged. "Who are you?" Mia whispered, feeling an inexplicable pull toward the specter. "Find them. Help them," the woman mouthed, her hand outstretched, pointing towards the far corner of the gym, where shadows danced and coiled like snakes. With a sudden burst of courage, Mia stepped forward, glancing back at her friends, who were still trying to pry open the door in a panic. "I think we need to go over there." "No, Mia, don't!" Sarah shouted, but Mia felt drawn to the spirit, the urge to help undeniable. "Just follow me," she called, feeling the atmosphere shift as she moved toward the shadows. Once there, she found a small trapdoor, slightly ajar and covered in dust. Heart pounding, she opened it wider. A dark, musty staircase descended into the abyss. "What are you doing?" Jake yelled, but Mia was already descending, the others reluctantly following her lead. They reached the bottom and found themselves in a long, narrow corridor, lined with doors. "Where are we?" Connor whispered, glancing around nervously. "Maybe the basement," Mia suggested, feeling a mix of fear and determination. The whispers grew louder, echoing off the walls. "Help us! Help us!" Following the sound, they approached the last door, its surface old and warped. Mia pushed it open, revealing a small classroom filled with old, rusted desks and a blackboard covered in strange symbols. As they stepped inside, the room darkened again, and the whispers turned frantic. "Find us. We're here." Suddenly, the spirit of the woman appeared in the center of the room, surrounded by a faint glow. "They are trapped. You must help them find peace." Who are you talking about?" Mia cried, desperate for answers. "Children, lost, in the fire." The woman's eyes filled with sorrow. In that moment, the room filled with haunting images, children laughing, playing, and then the chaos of flames engulfing the school. Mia felt a wave of emotion crash over her as the vision consumed her. "No, we have to help them," she pleaded. Suddenly, the temperatures plummeted, and the doors slammed shut, trapping them once more. The air thickened, and shadows began to swirl violently around them. "Find the source," the spirit cried out, her voice echoing as the walls began to shake. Without thinking, Mia ran to the blackboard and began to trace the symbols with her fingers. The other three joined her, and as they completed the final symbol, a blinding light filled the room, and the ground trembled under their feet. "What's happening?" Sarah screamed. "Just hold on," Connor shouted back. In an instant, the light exploded outward, engulfing the entire room and the shadows with it. The whispers turned to shrieks, echoing into nothingness. As the light faded, the atmosphere shifted, and the room fell silent. The children's spirits had found peace at last. Mia could feel it. The door swung open, and the group rushed outside, gasping for breath. The school stood eerily quiet now, the haunted presence seemingly lifted. As they reached the front steps, Mia turned back to look at the building. The faint outline of the spirit woman hovered in the window, a serene smile on her face. "You did well," she whispered, and then she was gone, leaving only the fading echoes of the past. As they walked away from Blackwood School, adrenaline pulsing through their veins, none of them said a word. The laughter of children was still echoing in their minds, but this time it was a sound of relief, a promise that the pain had been lifted, if only for a moment. And somewhere, deep in the shadows of the school, the past finally whispered its final goodbye. Once upon a time, in a small, quiet town, there lived a young girl named Lily. She was a bright and imaginative 7-year-old who loved to explore and create fantastical stories in her mind. But there was one thing that frightened her more than anything else: the dark space under her bed. Every night, as her mother tucked her in, Lily would stare wide-eyed at the shadowy abyss beneath her bed. Her mother would reassure her, "There's nothing there, sweetheart. Just dust bunnies and forgotten toys." But each night, as the lights went out and the moonlight cast eerie shapes around her room, Lily felt those shadows whispering secrets, curling around her legs like an icy hand. One stormy night, with thunder rumbling and rain lashing against the windows, Lily lay in bed feeling particularly uneasy. The wind howled outside, sounding like a mournful creature, and each clap of thunder made her heart race. She pulled the blanket tight around her shoulders and tried to forget about the darkness. But then she heard it, a soft scratching sound coming from under her bed. At first, she thought it might be her imagination, fueled by the frightening atmosphere. Yet the sound persisted. It was a slow, deliberate scratch, like a claw dragging across the wooden floor. "Lily, it's just the wind," she told herself, but deep down she knew it wasn't. It felt different, more alive. Summoning all her courage, she leaned over the side of her bed to take a peek, the fabric of her pajamas brushing against the cold floor. The moonlight barely penetrated the shadows under the bed, but for a moment she thought she saw two glowing eyes staring back at her. They flickered and vanished, replaced by a low grunt. Terrified, Lily quickly sat up, her heart pounding in her chest. What could it be? As she lay shaking in her bed, she remembered the tales her grandmother used to tell her about a monster that lived in the dark, a creature that thrived on fear and thrived in shadows. She had always dismissed those stories as fairy tales meant to scare children into behaving, but but now the thought made her stomach churn. Maybe if I ignore it, it will go away, she whispered to herself as she buried her face in her pillow, trembling. But the scratching continued, growing louder and more frantic. It was as if the creature beneath her bed was trying to get out, trying to claw its way into her world. "No, go away," Lily shouted, her voice small and shaky. But her words were swallowed by the storm outside. The scratching stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that settled heavily in the air, and for a moment she thought she might be safe. Just as she began to relax, she heard it again, but this time it was different. The creature spoke, its voice a low, gravelly whisper. "Lily, come closer. I won't hurt you." She felt a chill run down her spine. "Who are you?" she managed to squeak out, her voice trembling. "I am the shadow of your fears, the darkness that hides within. I have been waiting so long for you," it replied, its tone both alluring and frightening, wrapping around her like fog. Lily's heart raced as she processed its words. "Waiting for me? Why?" "To become friends, of course," the creature said, its eyes reappearing in the swirling shadows. They flickered with a strange, haunting light. "I can show you wonders beyond your wildest dreams. All you have to do is come here, just a little closer." The invitation was tempting. She felt a pull towards the darkness, a desire to know what lay beneath her bed. But she remembered her grandmother's words, warning her that the shadows could lie, that they could twist her dreams into nightmares. "No, I don't want to be your friend," Lily shouted defiantly, surprising even herself. "You're just a monster." "Monster?" it echoed, a deep rumble of laughter filling the room. "I'm more than a monster, dear Lily. I'm what makes the night beautiful. I can show you all the starry skies the world has to offer. All you need to do is trust me." For a moment, the storm outside quieted, and the atmosphere became thick with tension. Lily felt her resolve waver. What if the creature wasn't all bad? What if it could show her something wonderful? But just as she was about to lean closer, she remembered something important. "You only come out when I'm scared," she yelled, her voice steadying. "The shadows can't hurt me unless I let them." Silence enveloped the room again, the creature's laughter fading into an unsettling hush. "You think you can resist me? I am fear, Lily, and you will never escape me," it said, its voice low and threatening. With newfound determination, Lily made a decision. "I'm not afraid of you. I don't need you," she shouted, drowning out any inkling of doubt. "You're just a shadow." For a moment there was a heavy stillness, and then the creature's glowing eyes flickered and began to shrink back into the darkness. "You'll regret this, Lily. I will always be here, lurking in the shadows, waiting for you to fear again." The shadows under her bed twisted and convulsed before finally dissolving into the darkness, leaving only the sound of the rain pounding against the windows. Though she was still shaking, Lily felt a sense of calm wash over her. She took a deep breath and lay back down, covering her head with her blanket. From that day forward, Lily learned to embrace the darkness instead of fearing it. She discovered that the shadows could not harm her as long as she stood tall against her fears. At night, she would sometimes imagine the monster lurking below, but instead of feeling terrified, she would smile and whisper, "You don't scare me anymore." And as the thunderstorm passed and the sun rose, brightening her little room, Lily learned that sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we create in our minds, and by confronting them, we can become stronger and more courageous. The monster under the bed would remain, waiting in the shadows. But for Lily, the darkness had lost its power, transforming from a place of fear into a realm of possibilities. She was no longer just a girl. She had become a warrior against the shadows, ready to face whatever came next. As she drifted off to sleep that night, she smiled, knowing she was the one who held the power. And deep down, she knew that that monster would never truly understand what it meant to be brave.